What are some common facts that people believe to be true even if the existing evidence states the contrary? That 30 used to be considered ancient back when the average lifespan was 25 or whatever. The average is offset by a huge number of child deaths. 30 was never ancient. Even hunter-gatherer societies had people routinely living into their 60s. A lot of people think they can burn belly fat by doing crunches or slim their arms down by doing push-ups. But targeted fat loss isn't possible and there's no evidence to suggest it is. You can tap a block to see if it is loose in Jenga, which is stated quite explicitly in the rules, and duck you everyone who said I couldn't. Wait, what the duck? This blew up for no reason. The most violent arguments I've had have been convincing patients with a viral cold that they don't need antibiotics. A person drowning is not likely to be flailing wildly and yelling like in the movies. Drowning can often happen with mostly silence, especially with kids. Read up on the signs. It might save a life. I was drowning and lost consciousness when I was 5. I was told I barely made a sound. I went under, sucked in lungs full of water when I tried to cry out in surprise and blacked out. If it wasn't for my dad's instincts and quick action, I'd be dead. It is rarely necessary to wait 24 hours before filing a missing person report. Cracking your knuckles too often will give you arthritis. Nope. No conclusive study has ever backed this up. It just releases the gas from the synovial fluid in your joints, which is neither good nor bad. Vikings never actually drank from skulls of enemies. This was based on a mistranslation of Old Norse poetry in which they refer to drinking from horns. Lightning never strikes twice in the same place. In fact it does, and frequently. You don't want to be there when it happens. That if you touch a baby animal, like a bird or rabbit, its mother will neglect it and it will die. That is a myth. It was just a way for parents to get their kids to leave baby animals alone. That Einstein was a bad student and was bad at math. It's just not true. He got average high marks and was really just disdainful of the structure of school. And he was good at math. Physics is like 90% math. I get why people share it. It's to make struggling students feel better about themselves. But can't we tell them about something else instead of lying? People often confuse an independent media for an unbiased one. Cutting your facial hair makes it grow in thicker. I had a full-on argument with an individual who firmly believed that genetics played no possible role in hair growth whatsoever. I have never been more perplexed or angry in my entire life. Sincerely, bald at 25. A few people still believe that opening windows before a tornado to even the pressure will save their house from damage. Some also still believe trailer parks attract tornadoes and that random sacred landmarks can protect cities from tornadoes. That cow is giving milk because that's how this animal work. They don't believe me when I'm telling them that she needs to have baby to start producing milk. Chicken is cooked when it is no longer pink and the juices run clear. In fact, it's cooked when it hits 75°C, 165°F, and that's it. What it looks like depends on the cut. Chicken breast often has significant pink in it when it hits the temperature, which is why most people complain about dry, boring chicken, because they overcook it. On the flip side, wings can look cooked when they aren't, which is why they're a major source of food poisoning. The most important thing I learned working in a commercial kitchen. Worms come out when it rains because they are drowning in their holes. No, not really. They mostly come out because when it rains heavily, they are able to survive on the surface for much longer and move around, finding new areas to feed and more worms to breed with. When you swallow gum, it stays in your body for 7 years. I scrolled fairly far down and did not see what came to mind for me. A lot of people think blood is blue inside of the body, and that it only appears red because of the oxygen or something in the air. I tried to explain this to a past coworker, who was a former nurse, and she wasn't having any of it. Turns out a lot of otherwise smart people believe that with no evidence. But blood is always red, just darker at some points of circulation in the body. Your heart stops when you sneeze. People still think an undercover cop has to tell you they're a cop. How does that even make sense? Months of preparations ruined on the first day because someone happened to ask the magic question. Cops are allowed to lie to you and they will pretend to be your friend to get what they need from you. Side note, even if you're innocent of a crime, the first words from your mouth should be "I want a lawyer," and you don't provide any information until you have one. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. 420 did not originate from the LA Police or Penal Code for marijuana use. The use of 420 started in 1971 at San Rafael High School, where it indicated the time, 4:20, when a group of students would go to smoke. You can only taste certain tastes on certain parts of your tongue. That, tongue maps, are correct. That women's V's get loose when they've had a lot of sex. Alpha theory in dog training. The researcher that originally described the dominance theory was watching captive wolves at a zoo pack that was artificially created from unrelated specimens. The hierarchy in this curated collection was determined through fights and struggles for dominance, and this dynamic was then applied to domestic dogs and how they view themselves in relation to humans. This drove the dominate your dog style of training popular with Cesar Millan and his acolytes. When the scientific community was able to observe a wild wolf pack, however, they discovered that wild packs are family units and operate much the same way, with a parental breeding pair at the top and their younger offspring forming the pack, sometimes several litters at a time. As the pups grow older, they break off and form their own packs. The researcher that dismantled the theory, David Meck, described it thusly: attempting to apply information about the behavior of assemblages of unrelated captive wolves to the familial structure of natural packs has resulted in considerable confusion. Such an approach is analogous to trying to draw inferences about human family dynamics by studying humans in refugee camps. That your political party is 100% correct and that the other is 100% wrong. There is no requirement to wait an hour after eating before swimming. Carrots make you see better. It was made up by the British Army when they got their new guidance system. Sugar rushes. Some studies were done and it's mainly just little kids acting like little kids, and their parents expecting them to act up after having sugar from decades of saying that's what is supposed to happen. No evidence actually points to them being any more worked up. It's something I've brought up and been ridiculed for it, and despite saying just Google it, I'm still perceived as wrong. That punk in the UK was a reaction response to Margaret Thatcher. Punk broke in the UK in 1976-7, when the sitting government was Labour, or an alliance of Labour and other left-wing parties. Thatcher's Conservatives weren't elected until 1979. There is no scientific evidence to show GMOs are any worse or better than non-GMOs. All they do is protect against pesticides and get a bigger yield. Different rib counts for different genders. Just count them, Lois. The list of common misconceptions. This covers pretty much every single instance of this. Do your brain a favor and spend a few hours reading this. Probably the best 3-4 hours of time you can ever spend. Here is a really common one. Glass does not flow at room temperature as a high viscosity liquid. Although glass shares some molecular properties found in liquids, glass at room temperature is an amorphous solid that only begins to flow above the glass transition temperature, though the exact nature of the glass transition is not considered settled among scientists. Panes of stained glass windows are often thicker at the bottom than at the top, and this has been cited as an example of the slow flow of glass over centuries. However, this unevenness is due to the window manufacturing processes. That strawberries are actually berries and watermelons aren't. A dog or cat having a wet, dry, cold, warm nose doesn't mean it. It's an old wives' tale. Now if there's coughing, sneezing or discharge from the nose or eyes, then take your pet to vet. Having a baby will save your relationship or make an irresponsible man suddenly man up for his family. Babies only amplify all your existing problems and you should not have them until you are ready. The fact that resistant and proof, i.e. water resistant and waterproof, is two separate things and are not the same. There is so many people that believe them to be the same. Video games cause real life violence. There have been several studies disproving this. The Earth is flat, even though every other planet we have ever seen is not in fact flat. Pee isn't sterile, for anyone saying that it is, or is until it is released. The war on drugs was successful. In fact, it's one of the worst policies in American history. That the flu vaccine causes you to get the flu. I hear this every single year. I got the shot and 24 hours later I got the flu. That Muslims have a completely unique deity named Allah. He's exactly the same entity as the Judeo-Christian God, Jehovah. Allah is the Arabic word for God. Arabic-speaking Christians pray to Allah too. Some people believe the word nuclear to be pronounced as nuclear, despite the lack of a U vowel between the C and L within the word. I just shoehorned that response into this post because it sort of doesn't belong here, but still gets on my nerves. That the sex of a child is determined by the woman. The actual case is that the lucky sperm of the man determines the sex. It is more often than not a 50/50 on male or female offspring. Pandora opened a jar not box. It was a mistranslation of Pithus to Pixis. McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit is an example of a frivolous lawsuit. McDonald's was told multiple times by the health department not to serve coffee so hot. Just because you see a raccoon during the day doesn't mean it's rabid. People believe Listerine is a more effective mouthwash because of the taste it leaves in your mouth. But actually gargling with warm salt water is a more effective way to kill the bacteria in your mouth. My biggest pet peeve is when people say sweating is an effective way to rid your body of toxins. First of all, what toxins? Second of all, our bodies are made with an effective waste system that gets rid of things we don't need or that are harmful to us. It's called peeing and pooping. Sweating is our body's way of cooling itself down. It's not a waste removal system. It's just a quick way to get dehydrated and lose a lot of sodium, which we need. That looks don't matter. Of course they do. Your physical appearance literally influences everything you do, for the better or worse. And it's much more influential than people would want to believe. Schizophrenia means split personality. Masturbating will cause you to go blind. I could never see why people would say that. So I have a Geiger counter, and sometimes I'll bring it out just for fun when I'm hanging out with friends. I cannot even tell you how many people freak out when they see a number that isn't 0.00 on the screen. In reality, a little bit of radiation isn't at all dangerous. In fact, we're surrounded by ionizing radiation due to things ranging from naturally occurring elements in the soil to cosmic radiation. Levels will rise near things like granite countertops due to small amounts of thorium and uranium. During a flight, radiation levels go up by 10-25x plus what they are on the surface, due to less shielding from cosmic radiation by the atmosphere. Moral of the story: from what I've seen, people tend to think that radiation is some terrifying thing, and that it doesn't take a lot to give someone cancer or radiation sickness, when in reality, it takes a lot.